Jerome Archer. From Nueva Vista officer to federal vanguard. Jerome Archer's journey began not in high offices or war rooms, but on the ground, among the fractured neighborhoods and turbulent precincts of Nueva Vista. As a law enforcement officer, he was shaped by the raw reality of Federation urban life. Shifting alliances, quiet deals, and violent outbursts that could turn a peaceful district into a war zone by nightfall. He developed a reputation for calm under pressure, unshakable focus, and a firm but calculated grip on public order. His ambition, however, was never content with the boundaries of a single city. Over time, his capabilities caught the attention of higher authorities, and Archer transitioned into federal intelligence work. The exact details of this move remain buried within classified records, but by the early 3300s, he was operating within the ranks of the Federal Intelligence Agency. There, he quickly rose through the command structure, gaining a strategic view of the Federation's vast security apparatus. His ascent took a pivotal turn in March of 3307, when a terrorist bombing at Liching Geo Station in the Seoul system claimed the lives of multiple government officials, including Vice President Brad Mitchell. The Federation was shaken. Public confidence wavered, and President Zachary Hudson needed a stabilizing figure who could project strength without compromising control. He appointed Archer as the new vice president, an unorthodox but calculated move that shocked some and reassured others. In his first address to Congress, he made it clear, national security would no longer be reactive. The days of waiting for enemies to strike first were over. What followed was the Domestic Counterterrorism Act, drafted and championed under Archer's guidance. Passed swiftly under the weight of national mourning and fear, it granted sweeping powers to federal agencies. It was not just legislation, it was transformation. Surveillance, once restrained by political caution, became embedded within the daily machinery of government. Archer oversaw the establishment of the Proactive Detection Bureau, a body empowered to scan and intercept civilian communications across the Federation. The system was built on a fusion of advanced algorithms and human review teams, designed to detect extremist planning or terror-linked conversations. For many, it marked a new age of security. For others, the beginning of a slide into authoritarianism. Initial results gave Archer powerful leverage. Within months, thousands of suspected operatives were detained. Plots were interrupted before they could materialize. News outlets reported arrests across major systems. The Bureau had become a living shield, one that saw what others could not. Archer's approval ratings surged in sectors long plagued by unrest and lawlessness. Business leaders, transport unions, and frontier governors publicly praised the return of stability. But resistance grew just as quickly. Critics, including many from the Liberal Party and independent factions, decried the act as unconstitutional and its consequences dangerous. Protests flared. Some factions even formally withdrew from the Federation, accusing its leadership of abandoning core principles. Archer stood unmoved. To him, freedom without security was illusion. He repeatedly emphasized that the measures were emergency tools, necessary responses to exceptional threats. The threat, in his view, was not merely military, but ideological. Despite growing opposition, Archer's political position only strengthened. His background gave him a rare credibility. A man who had walked the beat, overseen intelligence operations, and now steered policy from the very top. He was not born into power. He had built it up by April of 3309. With President Hudson stepping down, Archer launched his own presidential campaign. At a rally on Nanamam 2, he stood before thousands and invoked his past with deliberate force. From my days as a cop on the streets of Nueva Vista to director of the Federal Intelligence Agency, I have worked hard to increase security for all citizens. His message was simple: he would finish what he started. Though he ultimately lost the election to Felicia Winters in October 3309, Archer's influence did not fade. As shadow president, he remained a powerful figure in Congress and retained vast sway over Republican loyalists. He continued to expand his control over hundreds of star systems, offering rewards to those who aligned with his authority and championing policies designed to project federal might deeper into independent space. Ascension after the Liqing-Jiao tragedy on March 11, 3307, Liqing-Jiao Station, one of the Federation's most critically strategic orbital hubs, was devastated by coordinated Neo-Marlinist Liberation Army bombings. The Vice President, Brad Mitchell, along with several federal cabinet members, perished as their meeting was underway. The violence struck simultaneously across 9 starports, igniting shock and grief across human space. In the days that followed, President Hudson and his remaining leadership faced a fragile federal structure collapsing under emotional and terrorist pressure. Within 2 weeks, they moved swiftly. On March 24, 3307, Jerome Archer was appointed vice president. In his first congressional address, Archer declared that the Federation could no longer afford to play defense. He proclaimed a full shift in strategy, preventative, not reactive enforcement. He personally authored emergency legislation to fundamentally recalibrate national security protocols. The Domestic Counterterrorism Act, drafted and presented within days, passed with overwhelming support amid mourning and fear. Within a week of his appointment, he had enacted sweeping powers granting agencies the ability to monitor civilian communications nationwide. By late March, the Proactive Detection Bureau was operational under Archer's direction. Algorithmic systems streamed data to review centers, flagging potential extremist activity for human curation. Within weeks, suspected cells were neutralized. One such cell, aimed at a federal transport corridor, was intercepted before any attack could be mounted. The Bureau's early success became the centerpiece for Archer's public justification. Vigilance had replaced vulnerability. By mid-April 3307, the station at Liqing-Jiao, once consumed by fire, had been fully repaired. Yet the psychological scars persisted. Public discourse shifted. Security, once taken for granted, became the new benchmark for leadership. Archer's image, built from enforcement experience and tactical acumen, served as proof he was neither politician nor bureaucrat, but guardian. For his political opponents, however, the concerns were existential. Shadow President Felicia Winters and her allies framed Archer's system as a door to permanent surveillance, a sea change in federal governance that mirrored a regime more concerned with control than service. Pressure mounted for legislative oversight, but during closed-door sessions Archer successfully maintained executive powers, referring to the security crisis as unprecedented. The autumn of 3307 saw Archer achieve a tacit political consolidation of influence. As vice president, he represented continuity with the previous administration. But as security czar, he also charted new doctrine, a federation where threats would be hunted before they surfaced. His rise was cemented by a narrative of competence under crisis. The battle over privacy, praise and condemnation collide. In the months following the launch of the Proactive Detection Bureau, the Federation found itself deeply divided between those who praised the newfound security and those who feared the erosion of privacy. When the Bureau began operations on April 6, 3307, it immediately set about scanning civilian communications, employing advanced algorithms to identify suspicious patterns and escalating potential threats for human review. Within weeks, several terrorist plots were uncovered and disrupted, arrests made, and lives saved. Governors of frontier systems, long plagued by piracy and unrest, welcomed the calm that followed. Traders and business leaders hailed the renewed stability along trade routes, while many citizens expressed relief at feeling safer after years of insecurity. This wave of approval, however, was met by equally fervent opposition. From the outset, civil rights advocates and political leaders voiced deep concerns over the sweeping surveillance powers granted to federal agencies. They argued that such pervasive monitoring violated fundamental privacy rights and could easily be abused. High-profile figures denounced the Bureau's operations as unconstitutional, warning that the Federation was sliding toward authoritarianism. Several factions even took steps to sever ties with the Federation, citing the loss of personal freedoms and the creeping expansion of state control. By mid-year, opposition intensified. Several star systems formally declared independence, decrying the Bureau as a tool not of protection but of repression. Critics pointed to cases where individuals with no history of violence were detained solely for expressing dissenting opinions. Archer defended the Bureau vigorously, insisting that all monitoring was conducted within strict legal parameters and focused only on credible threats. In congressional debates, he emphasized the need to prioritize safety over abstract notions of privacy, reminding lawmakers that security was a prerequisite for freedom. Voices from outside the Federation added to the criticism. Allied powers and the Empire alike accused the Federation of overreach, branding the Bureau's methods as excessive and dangerous precedents. Yet Archer remained steadfast. He portrayed the Bureau as a pioneering innovation that had successfully prevented bloodshed and restored order to troubled regions. The legal landscape grew complicated as corporations and trade groups challenged the Bureau's access to private communications. Allegations surfaced that federal security was being leveraged to benefit commercial interests. Archer dismissed such claims as distractions, focusing instead on the protection of innocent lives. Public opinion became sharply divided. Polls showed a fragile majority willing to accept limited sacrifices in privacy for the sake of security, while other communities remained resolute in their defense of civil liberties. Throughout the debate, Archer's refrain was clear. Without security, there is no privacy. His opponents countered with a warning. Surrendering freedom for protection ultimately leads to the loss of both. The arrest of Jupiter's Wrath leaders brought both vindication and controversy. Archer hailed the strikes as proof of the Bureau's effectiveness, but reports of detentions based on ideological suspicion rather than concrete acts of violence sparked fresh protests. Questions were raised about due process and transparency, with critics alleging that secrecy surrounding the Bureau's methods allowed abuses to go unchecked. When Felicia Winters assumed the presidency, she moved swiftly to dismantle the surveillance structure. Declaring the Domestic Counterterrorism Act illegal and unconstitutional, she ordered the shutdown of the Proactive Detection Bureau and called for a full repeal of emergency powers. Archer, now leading the opposition as shadow president, warned that such moves endangered the Federation's hard-won stability and left it vulnerable to threats both foreign and domestic. Defeat and rebirth, from vice president to shadow presidency. After a fiercely contested campaign, Jerome Archer had been narrowly defeated by Felicia Winters in the 3309 federal presidential election. Having served as vice president under Zachary Hudson, Archer had positioned himself as the Republican Party's candidate and a leading voice for a security-first federation. The loss marked a significant setback, but it did not signal the end of his influence. In the months following the election, Archer transitioned into the role of shadow president. Though this position held no executive power, it granted him a platform to lead the opposition and challenge the new administration's policies. Early on, Archer made it clear that his vision for the Federation remained unchanged. He praised Winters for running a clean campaign, but expressed serious doubts about her ability to maintain order in the face of persistent threats. He warned that dismantling critical security programs, such as the Proactive Detection Bureau, would leave the Federation vulnerable to terrorism and civil unrest. During his tenure as shadow president, Archer dedicated himself to rallying the Republican Party and preserving its role as a counterbalance in federal politics. He frequently highlighted what he perceived as the weaknesses of Winters' administration, particularly in the realms of security and defense. Despite these efforts, Archer struggled to regain the presidency amid shifting political tides. Many citizens favored Winters' more liberal policies and her promises of restoring privacy and reducing surveillance. In the years that followed, Archer continued to advocate for a robust security apparatus and a proactive stance against threats to stability. Building a republic in exile, power over 800 systems. By the time Jerome Archer assumed the role of shadow president in late 3310, his influence had expanded far beyond the Federation's capital worlds. From his base on Nanamam, he led a powerful political movement controlling more than 800 star systems, encompassing a population approaching 500 billion people. This vast expanse, known as the Federal Republic, was the embodiment of Archer's vision, a bastion of security, order, and federal authority amid an increasingly fragmented galaxy. The Federal Republic was no mere alliance of convenience. It was a carefully structured network of territories, organized by strength and strategic importance. Within its reach were 85 strongholds, systems heavily fortified and central to military and political command. Around 180 additional systems were classified as fortified zones, equipped with enhanced defenses and serving as buffers against hostile factions. The remaining 600-plus systems fell under an exploited category, where the Republic maintained control primarily through economic and political influence. This intricate system of governance allowed Archer's faction to project power far beyond traditional boundaries, asserting dominance across vast regions of space. Integral to maintaining this sprawling domain was the Federal Republic Command, a coalition that united military, political, and civilian groups under Archer's leadership. Coordinating across diverse organizations, the command ensured seamless communication and joint operations among its members. The combined efforts of these groups sustained the Republic's strength, enabling it to respond rapidly to emerging threats and expand its influence by undermining rival powers. The Republic's military backbone was reinforced by a number of dedicated squadrons and factions, such as the Federal Republican Guard and the 42nd Federal Fleet. These forces played critical roles in securing contested systems, defending against insurgencies, and conducting offensive operations when necessary. Their presence not only bolstered regional security, but also signaled to allies and adversaries alike the seriousness and determination of Archer's movement. Despite persistent opposition from rival political factions and external powers, Archer's leadership remained unwavering. His commitment to a strong federal government that prioritized security and stability shaped every aspect of the Republic's policies. Under his direction, the Federal Republic pursued a dual strategy, consolidating control over existing systems while cultivating strategic alliances to broaden its sphere of influence. Rank rewards and allegiance, loyalty forged through incentives. Archer introduced a system of rank-based rewards designed to cultivate loyalty and motivate active participation among his supporters. The structure was crafted to not only reward dedication, but to also strengthen the Federal Republic's grip on its vast territories and ensure sustained allegiance from its followers. At the heart of Archer's system was a clear progression path. Supporters who pledged loyalty to the Federal Republic could ascend through a hierarchy of ranks, each tier unlocking increasingly valuable benefits. From the earliest stages, participants were granted tangible advantages that reinforced their commitment. Basic incentives included reductions in the costs associated with ship rebuy after destruction within Federal Republic-controlled space, easing the financial burden on loyal pilots and operatives. As individuals climbed higher in rank, they gained access to more significant rewards. These included increased bounty payouts for targeting hostile forces, as well as discounts on weapon modules and other critical ship components when operating within Federal Republic jurisdictions. Such benefits empowered supporters to operate more efficiently and aggressively, further expanding the faction's influence while promoting a culture of mutual support and cooperation. Beyond economic advantages, the Federal Republic made available exclusive power modules at advanced ranks, granting supporters tactical tools designed to bolster combat effectiveness and strategic flexibility. Coordinating these efforts was the Federal Republic Command, a coalition of military and civilian groups working in concert to ensure seamless execution of the faction's objectives. Through coordinated communication channels and community platforms, the command facilitated collaboration among supporters spread across hundreds of systems. The Federal Republic also relied heavily on the commitment of allied squadrons and factions, including the Federal Republican Guard and the 42nd Federal Fleet. These groups played vital roles in defending federal territories, disrupting rival powers, and securing new systems. Archer's system of rank rewards and allegiance proved to be a powerful tool in forging a cohesive and motivated base. Loyalty was incentives not only through ideological alignment, but through tangible, practical benefits that directly enhanced the lives and effectiveness of supporters. This blending of principle with pragmatism created a durable bond between the Federal Republic and its constituents, ensuring that Archer's vision for a secure and united federation remained viable and influential.